people. You might remember Sara Nelson advocating for furloughed workers from the government shutdown last year. She is the president of the Association of Flight Attendants, and now she's back on the front lines fighting for workers during the coronavirus crisis. She just put out a rescue plan for workers, which she says isn't a repeat of past bailouts in which big businesses got billions and working people had to beg for scraps. This is a rescue plan that puts people first. Sara, thanks for joining us on the program today.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's really a joy to have you here. And I think there's so much to talk about in terms of worker protections during this crisis.
Yeah.
Let's start there, and then we can move on to what we need. Your thoughts about what the government just did yesterday in terms of the bill that was passed. We'll pummel you with questions.
Okay. Great. Let's go. There's lots to talk about.
There's so much to talk about. So you've been a vocal leader on the rights of workers instead of bailing out corporations, and you just put out this proposal, including strong protections of workers during the COVID-19 crisis. Can you talk about your proposal and what's in it?
Yeah. So actually, it was voted on by the Senate last night. And this is specifically on the financial package so that people can continue to take care of themselves. I mean, we need to think about this sort of in three parts. We need to attack the virus. We need to make sure that the entire country is strong during that time. And then we need to restart our economy once we've eradicated the virus. So attacking the virus is about making sure that the people on the front lines, our medical professionals, have the ability to do that. But it's also about getting out of their way. How much have we heard? Stay in your homes. Let's not have any more people sick. We need to be able to have our medical professionals be able to deal with this at a normal rate, not overloading our hospitals, which would be an even bigger crisis, right? So we need as many people strong as possible. So the financial package matters right now because we need people to be able to safely shelter and take care of themselves. And so we went to Congress and said, you know what, we're going to have this massive stimulus bill. This is not going to be another bailout for corporations. One thing that I have learned throughout the course of doing my union work, a very hard lesson, is what Mother Jones told us 100 years ago. And that is that the capitalists are always organizing. And they see a crisis as an opportunity to organize for themselves. And so we need to recognize that because they are going to be doing that, we need to be thinking about what it is that we need. Mm-hmm. So, Washington is used to building these packages from the top down, not from the ground up. And so we were not going to come in here with a list of demands about what we wanted to have in the bill. We went directly to Washington and said, we're going to build the framework of this bill. And that was the proposal. So we said it's a worker first bill. And that has to start with making sure that any direct funds that are coming from the government are going directly to the companies, but have to be designated to go into workers' paychecks and benefits. Mm-hmm. So this keeps everyone on the job. This is what Denmark is doing. And it's essentially freezing the economy until you can get rid of the virus and then restart again. Now, this was specific to the airline industry because that's what I deal with, but we wanted this to be a template for everyone. And this is what the Senate passed last night. It actually says in the bill that it can
so that's a big win.
it can, yes, and it's going to be voted on by the House tomorrow. And this is like, we won. I mean, we
yeah, because the House isn't going to hopefully turn on us all of a sudden.
No. I mean, this is it. So the bill is constructed to say that this is not a bailout for the airlines. All of the money that comes from the government is going to go back to the people who are the workers who create the value in this country and are the consumers in this country and contribute to our GDP and who are the taxpayers in this country. So we're going to get that directly back through our paychecks. And the other thing that this does that is so important to think about is we don't need to be adding administrative tasks to our government right now when every single resource should be focused on fighting this virus. And so what this does is it keeps existing pay structures in place. People stay connected to their paycheck, which means they're still getting their 401k contributions. Maybe not so great right now, but hey, they're buying it up when it's cheap and it'll be better later, right?
Right.
And they're staying connected to their healthcare, kind of an important thing during a pandemic.
Yeah.
And we're getting that relief to people directly through their paychecks. So it keeps things as normal as possible during this national emergency. And then, we can talk about what flight attendants are doing and going to work, but the whole idea here was to keep people connected to their jobs, their paychecks, keep the industry intact, so that once the virus is under control, we can actually restart our economy and people can go right back to work. People who have security clearance and safety clearances have to be able to get right back to work. And if you let that lag, there's all these people who are not qualified to go do that work anymore. So this was all wrapped up in why this was a workers' first bill, and we actually got it done. And I can talk about the foibles along the way and all the things the Republicans did to try to make this worse. But there you go.
Do you think, I know I'm almost shocked. Like, when do we win? When we fight, I guess. And so I appreciate all the work that you're doing on the behalf of the workers. Can you tell us about what the Republicans actually wanted and how you had to stop them from that?
Well, look,
Were
they
about
wanted
to hand a whole bunch of money to like the CEOs and just be like, you can handle it.
Yeah, right. And the argument was, we got to give it to them, and we can't even tell anybody who we're giving it to or how much we're giving them or what they're going to do with it, because, that's going to interfere with their ability to compete. Give me a break. We're in the middle of a pandemic.
Wow. What possibly could go wrong with that idea?
Yeah. No, it's crazy. And I have to tell you, we got the basic structure of this bill, but the biggest thing that these guys fought against was their executive comp, which we capped in this bill. We stopped stock buybacks in this bill. We stopped dividends in this bill. And they also fought a provision just to say, hey, follow the law and don't interfere with your workers' right to join a union. And they were apoplectic about that provision. We're talking about billions of dollars. We're talking about a collapse of our economy. We're talking about this worldwide pandemic. And what these guys were worried about was, we're not going to be able to do union avoidance. So these are the things we had to fight against. And then I'll tell you too,
that's actually really, I just want to take a quick pause there, because that is actually really amazing that this is able to come through, because people in the progressive sphere are looking for how can progressive politics, as you said, the capitalists are trying to make a gain out of this crisis. And I don't think we should say that we're not going to. People are like, well, maybe at the end we'll figure out that it's not so good to not share. No. We have to gain off of this too. So it sounds like we did make a gain in terms of keeping that those union laws.
If I can add, I feel like this is a victory over the Scrooge McDucks of the world.
Oh, for sure. When have they ever told how they have to spend their money? And that's what this bill does. Is it tells them how they have to spend it, and they can only spend it on workers' pay and benefits.
I think that, I'm sorry, the work that you have done in the past and the work that the organized labor has done, and the all of the activism around the bank bailouts, do you think that contributed to the fact that the Democrats now could not possibly vote with Republicans, or they would be, shamed out of their seat?
Well, I have to tell you, I really, the Democrats were good here. They were good. And it's really a lesson for all of us, because we had strong demands, and trust me, I was not easy on them. Okay, not easy at all. But what they responded with was, here's someone who is putting forward strong demands and making them on us, and saying, if you do this, I'm going to have your back too. And so I'm going to tell you right now that, Nancy Pelosi was like the cavalry coming in Saturday night when these guys were taking control of this process and trying to derail it. And she came in and was like, hard no. And that was really important. That was really important for Chuck Schumer to be able to deliver that message. And then what happened was all of the Democrats stuck together and denied a vote on Mitch McConnell's bill. And
this is very exciting, and all I got about is dead pandemic people.
I got a call from one of the senators and said, Sarah, you'd be really proud of us. We all stuck together, and they did. And I'm telling you, I was screaming and yelling in my house because this thing was going down the toilet, and it was going to be another bailout for corporations and no controls on it, and they stopped it. And then they wanted to hear about the plan, and they stuck with it, and we got it. And so I have to tell you that I am going to shout from the rooftops how hard they worked. Chuck Schumer told his staff to work with us, and they did, and they stuck with it, and we got the framework of our bill. Now, listen, we didn't get everything that we wanted. Far from it, I'd say, actually. But the basic construct of jobs, benefits, and being able to take care of yourself is there in the bill, and that is the most important thing, and that is what we accomplished together.
If we can do a little crystal gazing, how do you think that this will, the fact that the Democrats came together in support of worker rights, how do you think that this, or the people's rights, shall we say, how do you think that, this will, that they will continue a solidarity with unions more, once this becomes obviously very popular?
Yeah. So, you know what? I think we have to recognize that we have to do our part, right? It was really, really helpful. Everybody out there on social media getting that trending, workers first. That was really helpful because that got into the airwaves, and it was a really short soundbite that these Democrats understood that they had to have a workers first bill or else this wasn't going to work. And again, I mean, this stimulus package is not enough. It's not going to be enough. We're going to have to go back again. But this is building blocks. So we got some immediate relief to people, which is going to give us a stronger ground to stand on to fight for more. And I do just want to note here that here's a great example of how this was not enough and how this was mean-spirited from the Republicans. So we fought really hard to get into the bill extended benefits, healthcare for the catering workers in the kitchens at the airports. These are people who make next to nothing, who have abysmal healthcare, who are working in conditions that oftentimes are not safe for them. And we said that in this bill, you need to make sure that they have healthcare that is equal to the other workers in this package. So you've got to inject that into this and make sure that during a pandemic, they have healthcare. Now, we fought really hard for that. And at the last minute, at 6 a.m, the Republicans attached a poison pill to that healthcare portion of the bill and made it impossible for us to be able to keep that in the bill. And so those people, 16,000 people in the middle of a pandemic who make, very little money, were denied that healthcare. Now we got this passed. We're going to get this passed for everyone else, and we're going to be stronger to be able to put together a fund to help them and to continue to fight for them in the next package. We are not going to leave them alone, but we have to recognize that when we strengthen all of ourselves and we fight from a stronger position, we can actually reach down and pull the people out who fell through the cracks. And that's what we're going to continue to do. But that is how mean-spirited these people are. And they have not been to a grocery store, if ever in their lives, or for a very long time, where you have to take a calculator and add up as you go through that grocery store, whether or not you're going to be able to pay for that when you get to the checkout counter. They don't understand that. They don't understand what that's like to wait for that paycheck in another couple of days and scraping the bottom of the peanut butter jar just to try to get another meal out of that for your kid. And so that's the reality of people out there. And for these people that we're dealing with are only looking at a balance sheet and only looking at how they can make this work for their corporate buddies, because it was about, we don't want to give these people a taste of their healthcare because then they're going to expect it on the other side of this pandemic. And we're going to have to put it in their contracts. I swear to God, that was their argument.
Oh, people in the chat are saying Sara is an American hero. Thank you for all your work. And things like that, of that nature. I could read them all, but
well, Sara, maybe they can come help me figure out how to mount my phone, because I couldn't. So sorry, guys, it's shaking all over the place.
Yes, fine. We're just happy to have you here. Sara, the Republican talking points that specifically Donald Trump he's talking as if he's a man of the people. He fights workers' rights. What have you noticed? Any have you noticed the workers those who maybe thought so at the beginning, starting to realize that that is not the case? Is there any hope that some of these Trump supporters have come to their senses, given what he's actually doing and what he and his cronies are fighting for, which is keeping healthcare away from poor people?
So this is what I would ask. Yeah, exactly. This is what I would ask. So if you really listen to the president in his press conferences, he is out there saying, he adopted my talking points like a week and a half ago and said, we got to make sure that the people are taken care of. We're going to take care of the workers. Okay. He was out there saying those things. So let's recognize that. that the people who have listened to him and are tuned into him are hearing that, and they're hearing all the rhetoric that makes it sound like he's standing up for them. So, I would really call on the entire progressive community to not focus on the president, because the reality is that all of the people in Congress who enable him are the problem. And so we need to focus on where the problem is and not allow him to be a distraction. I would call on the entire progressive community to not say his name for the next 30 days, and let's see what happens.
Ooh, I'll try to take the challenge. It's
Oh,
call him
I have not said his name the entire time of his presidency. He is the current occupant of the White House.
Mhm.
But
I'm
don't
not
don't
giving
even
him any
focus
more
on the
advertising.
president. Let's
Right.
focus on the people who enable that behavior, because he is lying to people, and then tries to blame it on the Democrats. And I've seen this before. This is the exact this is the exact playbook of union busters. What they try to do is they'll ignore the union, make the union ineffective, and then say, "What has the union done for you?" And this is a a playbook that has been used for a century, and we need to understand what that is, and we need to not play on that framework. We need to not play on that field. We need to create our own field and go over and build a new field where it's safe for us. So let's not play on his terms. Okay, I really want everybody to hear this. Don't at him, don't talk about him. Identify who are the people who is doing his work. Senator Toomey was the one who denied those workers that healthcare. He was the one who tried to derail this entire workers first bill. And I'm going to call him out right now. It was him who did that. And we're going to focus on the people who are doing the dirty work here and undercutting workers, and stop focus on the person who is saying all the right things but letting all the people in his party do the wrong things for him.
Sarah, have you talked to some of your flight attendants after after they heard about your win? How is it being received?
Um, so flight attendants are thrilled, and
I do want to say that the woman who is producing our show on the back end right now, putting all the boxes in places, is a former flight attendant. So we have.
oh gosh, you know what? We're everywhere. Flight attendants are really smart, savvy people with a lot of different skills, and and we have connections everywhere. So flight attendants are really happy, but I will also tell you that we have been on the front lines of this pandemic since the end of December, and we are still. So this was really important because we saw our industry being completely unraveled. We started to know that we were going to be left with between 15 and 30% of the industry still intact, which really is not intact. That's completely unraveling the entire industry. And so when I say that, I mean, that's our jobs, right? That's flight attendant jobs, it's pilot jobs, mechanic jobs, but it's also the people who push the wheelchairs in the airport and, help your grandmother to get to the gate. It's the concessions person who is selling you a sandwich. And it's those security people in the airport. So these were all the people who were going to be hurt by this. And so flight attendants understand that what we did yesterday was to save our jobs and keep our industry in place. So they're thrilled about that. But they're also still having a lot of questions about how we're going to attack this pandemic and how we're going to deal with going to work in the middle of this. And there's a lot of problems, and people are concerned about that. So we're going to move to the next stage of this, about how we're taking care of people at work, but also how we're supporting our healthcare professionals and keeping the social distancing going like other countries have done, so that we can actually flatten the curve and make sure that everyone's safe and restart our economy. So that's where our heads are now, is all the things that are not happening to keep people safe.
Are the airlines giving flight attendants protective gear because I mean you're in a
Yeah.
little with a lot of breathing,
Y-
are there new
Yeah.
protocols?
There are new protocols. We have been working on this since January, and there are masks and gloves and hand sanitizer and sanitizer wipes, but sometimes those things don't exist, or there's supply chain issues, and the airlines are not getting them, or some airlines have not necessarily been as good about doing this as others. And so we have been working really hard to help flight attendants understand that in the middle of this pandemic, if they don't have the resources that they need to use their card as a safety professional and say that they don't think it's safe to fly in those conditions, and advocate in that way, and also get the reports to us so that we can be pushing back on the airlines and also on the government about this. So it hasn't been consistent. The airlines, I would say, have worked with us better than we've ever seen in the past on these issues. But some of these things have been out of their control because the government has not provided the kind of coordination that we need to be able to address this pandemic and have all the supplies, just like our medical professionals are talking about, that they can't get the supplies on the front lines in our hospitals to be able to keep themselves safe and take care of people. So we're experiencing some of the same issues. And we also, frankly, have had the issue of not being able to get tested. So we've had flight attendants who, get this, have been exposed to the coronavirus, and the CDC guidelines are that, for passengers who are exposed, they should go self-quarantine. But there's an exemption for crews. So crews should continue to fly and work and be with other people unless they're experiencing symptoms.
Why?
So
Why would the CDC?
yeah.
Why? Why did they do that? Did someone pay them to say that? Why? Why did they do that?
I don't know. I mean, I'm
Center
not
for
gonna,
Disease Control, unless you work for the airline.
Yeah. So
that sounds like a business decision, not a people decision.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we have done is, where we have a voice and we have our union, we have pushed back on the airlines, and for the most part, they have been good about saying, okay, yeah, you're right, we need to use the same guidance as we're using for the passengers, so we'll use that for the flight attendants too. But I just had a report that Delta Airlines was telling someone just 3 days ago to continue to fly until they experience symptoms. So we have been talking to the FAA.
Have like a lot of extra people laying around because of
I mean, that's just it.
But they can just bring someone else in.
So some of this has been that this has all happened so fast. So we have, middle management who is still going forward with their normal policies, and
it's always a problem with middle management.
So yeah. So if we had a more coordinated response, we could actually deal with these things faster and cut out the absurdity that's going on. And that's what we've done in the past, is that CDC is not really an expert in occupational health. Normally, they would be coordinating with OSHA. That kind of interagency coordination and coordination with the stakeholders has not happened during this pandemic. Normally, that would be pulled together by the government, and we were begging for that. But these agencies have also been depleted. The funding has been depleted, and we don't even have a head of OSHA right now. So these are some fundamental issues that have made it very hard to deal with some common sense issues and things that we could have fixed right away if we had the kind of coordination we're supposed to. Because I'll tell you, the CDC had some of the same ridiculous guidelines during Ebola, but because we were able to deal with the issues in real time, we actually got those things fixed in a fairly short order, and sometimes within a matter of hours.
We're speaking with Sara Nelson, the international president of the Association of Flight Attendants-CWA, AFL-CIO, a United Airlines flight attendant since 1996. She previously served as the AFA's international vice president for a term beginning January 1, 2011. Today, the AFA-CWA represents nearly 50,000 flight attendants at 20 airlines. Sara, can you talk a little bit about what the other labor groups are going through at this time? And have you seen an upsurge in solidarity surrounding the pandemic response?
Yeah, so in a crisis, or in any time really, you need leadership. And we see that people are at different levels of taking in this crisis. And what we have seen is that we've all been saying, hey, take care of each other. And frankly, the people on the front lines have been soaking up that idea and really reaching out to each other and trying to provide support right now. The other unions in aviation, we worked very closely together on this, and coordinated on what our demands were and what we needed to get, what we needed to do to protect people. But I will tell you, I mean, this happened really, really fast, and it has been like drinking from a fire hose, trying to get what the most important issues are and what we need to address. And so I would say that there is a tremendous spirit of solidarity. But there are so many issues and so many things to take care of that a lot of times it's been very hard to even just find the time to get those calls together to coordinate on issues. And there's been some real challenges on that. But I think now that we've gotten some relief through this package, we're going to get to the next phase here and take on the next issues. And people are already talking about how we're going to rally together and really support our workers on the front lines in the hospitals and at the community health centers, so that we can all really get behind them and get them what they need, whether it's supplies or just getting information out to people about how they need to be taking responsibility for for themselves and not overloading the professionals in this time. So
I know
yeah.
this is a question that is probably, this is more geared for the masses who are not necessarily in a union, but are concerned about the economy. Can you give the pitch to why, keeping people's paychecks in their hands instead of giving them to, corporate CEOs is the better way to keep this economy going, not to mention just the just way?
Yeah. Well, look, it's just really practical. So if you keep people's paychecks going, they can take care of themselves right now, and we just uh, we can focus on the sick and vulnerable. So everybody else who is healthy and strong, we need to keep them healthy and strong and able to stay that way. And so those paychecks are really important right now. But also, we need to keep that in place, because on the other side of this, guess what? We're the workers who create all the value in this country. And we are the consumers who spend and will actually restart the economy. And thanks to thanks to Donald Trump and the GOP. Oh, I broke my own rule. We're the ones.
It's a drinking game.
we're the ones who are also the taxpayers. So as opposed to the corporations that pay very, 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 very little. So we getting the paychecks to people is about how we actually are returning the money to the taxpayers, because the people who are spending are the very ones who are also the taxpayers who keep the economy going. And so our template for this, we want for every other industry, because we also know that on the other side of this, hey, we need people to actually be able to afford to buy airplane tickets. Because otherwise the economy is not going to restart. We are going to have bigger problems. We're not going to have jobs. And so we need everyone to be getting a paycheck and being lifted up, and not be in a position where they are hurting financially.
How can people who are watching support what you are doing and what the rest of, say, what the rest of labor is doing to support the workers?
So keep talking about workers first. Every single package needs to have that standard. And we have really set that principle and demand that. So there's going to have to be another stimulus. There's just going to have to be. We're going to have to come back for more. So keep that narrative going and understand that that has to be the backbone of any stimulus. And band together on that, and don't focus. I know everybody wants to focus on executive compensation and the stock buybacks, and we already got it. We got that locked in, and everybody wants these guys at the top to hurt. But the truth of the matter is that we really have to focus on each other and make sure that we are taken care of, because when we are taking care of each other, our power is in that connectivity and that collective efforts. And we are also stronger to be able to fight these guys. These guys are going to take care of themselves no matter what. Okay. So you're not going to put a world of hurt on them. But the best way you can put them in check is if you make sure that your neighbor is strong and can stand with you and hold them accountable. And so that is the best way to move forward here, is to focus on each other and make sure that every single bill that comes out is focused first and built from the ground up.
Sarah, some of these folks have been talking about the fact that this was before it was negotiated. Some of the talk was, well, maybe we won't just hand airlines a whole bunch of money and say they can do whatever it is they want with it. Perhaps we will have some environmental constraints on that. Can you talk about where we are with that? And was that the time for that? Was that a good idea? Where did we land?
So, so I have to tell you, even the industry agreed with putting environmental standards in the bill. Now, maybe not as far as we wanted to go, but even the industry agreed with that. And it was the ideologues who fought it, simply because of the idea of it, simply because of the politics. So I'll give you an example. One of the issues was cash for clunkers. So an airplane that is inefficient, that burns fuel at a high amount.
Clunkers, oh my God.
So the government would actually pay the airlines to get those planes. They would buy up the leases on those planes so that we could park those planes that are inefficient, frankly, also for the airlines, but especially hurting our environment. And then they can use that cash to purchase new planes with new technology that uses biofuels. And we increase the amount of biofuels that are being used by the airlines. And we also are creating jobs that way. So some people, the ideologues wanted to talk about this. The ideologues wanted to talk about this as though, it's the climate people, we can't give them a win. But the fact of the matter was that the Democrats put that into the stimulus package because this was actually the way to stimulate the economy, because we're funneling money to the corporations to put in place a greener infrastructure, which also spurs jobs for the manufacturers, the people in those manufacturing plants. And so we're making our planet greener, creating jobs and putting more money into our economy. Sounds like a win to me.
Sounds terrible.
So some people were saying that, this isn't the time to be handling environmental issues. Well, yes, it is, because this is all about, it's all wrapped together. It's all wrapped together. And it is, yes, I mean, those are the principles of the Green New Deal. And they don't want us to get a taste of the world that we can build or the power that we have. And that's why they were fighting so hard against this. And that's why, frankly, our Workers First package about these paychecks was the very last thing that was solved. Donald Trump kept saying, airlines are going to be first. We're going to relieve them first. He was saying that in the press conferences. And behind the scenes, because our package was on keeping workers strong, it was the very last thing on the table, the very last thing that was decided in the stimulus bill. And so we had to fight to the bitter. We won. We held them off, but we had to fight to the bitter end.
This is very exciting. And I am really happy to see, this is a great win. And of course, from every win comes the stepping stone to yet another win. So we are going to be following, as we always do, all the work that you and the rest of the organizations fighting for workers' rights do. I thank you so much for coming on this program today.
Thank you. Keep fighting, everybody. When we fight, we win.
Sara Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants-CWA, part of the AFL-CIO. Oh, Sara.
Oh, yeah. What?
Hey, last time you were on the radio, there was rumors that Richard Trumka might be stepping down, and I said that you need to take that job. Where are we?
We need a fighting labor movement, and so
I don't want him to go anywhere. I'm just saying.
No. I mean, I'm all in on doing whatever we need to do in this labor movement to bring people together and to have a strong voice. So, I
like the idea of a lady at the head of labor right now.
Okay, except I'm going to call you out there for a second. So Mother Jones said Rockefeller and his gang of thieves made the ladies, but God Almighty made women. And so, I'm here to talk as a woman. I'm no lady, and I'm not going to be ladylike.
I like that even better.
So hear that.
Okay, a woman. Right on. I appreciate it.
All right.
Very good.
Power to the women.
Thank you, Sara. And we'll see you again. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay, take care. Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.